Hi, welcome to my channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. Today we're going to still talk about Israel and Palestinian and the war that's going on there. First off, one has to ask the question, is there really a war going on? Because the only people that are actually fighting are the Israelis, destroying Gaza. Maybe I don't see much because the media doesn't really cover it, but maybe there are some attacks by Hamas or defensive. I understand that about 15 or 17 Israeli soldiers have died until today. So surely then Hamas must be fighting back. But on the other hand, what's the whole purpose? How do Israelis actually talk? If you look at, or if you listen to various authoritative people, meaning like Netanyahu or the ambassador in Israel or the Israeli in Italy or the Israeli ambassador to the UN or the Israeli ambassador in America and so on, then the only conclusion that you can come through is that Netanyahu, Israel has totally lost the plot. They are on a track of revenge, and their aim is to totally annihilate Hamas, which is a stated goal, but trust me, that's not their main goal. The main goal is to get rid of the Palestinian problem. And as we know, they have asked the civilian population of Gaza to leave the city and to go to the Sinai desert in Egypt. And once the fighting is back, then then they can return. But we all know that's a lie. The Israelis are doing ethnic cleansing according to all definitions. And what they are trying to do is try to convince the Palestinians to leave their homes, which these guys actually refuse to do, and then go live in a Sinai desert in Egypt. And that would have been the end of their problem in Palestine. But unfortunately, the Palestinians didn't agree, and also Egypt didn't agree. Egypt has closed their borders, and they don't want to allow any Palestinians to leave Gaza into the Sinai desert. But then there came out a paper by some intelligence or think tank in Israel that recommended that or insisted that all the Palestinians must be removed and put into tent towns in Sinai desert, and that they should be there and buildings be built there and the city be built there, and they should never be returned, especially everything I was just talking about. And they in America and Israel were thinking that the Arab countries will support that. Well, they're not supporting it in no way, and that is by the actions of Egypt. So it seems to me there is only one way and one way forward, and that is Israel's brutal attack on Gaza and the killing of many Palestinian civilian people. A war crime in itself. From a nation that accused the Germans of war crimes in terms of the Holocaust and milked the German population and government for 60, 70 years of reparations for the Holocaust that they committed. Now the victims are doing the same to a different race, and they claim the victim status. Ooh, poor Israelis were killed by Hamas. But apart from Hamas, Israel is still bombing Hezbollah in the north of Israel, in Lebanon and Syria. It still attacks regularly in the last 2 weeks the airports of Syria, claiming they are bombing Hezbollah and Iranian soldiers and personnel. But when Syria reports it, it's usually Syrian soldiers that died, or Syrian civilians that have died. So again, Israel is just going ahead and bombing everybody wherever he feels like it for that day, with impunity. And nobody is saying anything about that. Now, if you look back at the Hamas attack, I think it, okay, I do condone, is that the right word, all violent actions. So from that point alone, I will condemn the Hamas attack. But from a ideological or perceived, I understand why they attacked, and I can understand why it's situation. If I don't take any sides on that, then from a military point of view, that is what the following alternative view is based on. There was an agreement supposed to be between Saudi Arabia and Egypt and Israel, and this would have been a beneficial agreement that was brokered by the US. It's some of Abrams Accord or something like that, I believe it's called. That would have pulled them into the fold, and it would have benefited Israel enormously. And then the rest of the states in the Middle East would have followed Saudi Arabia. And that would have meant the end of the Palestinian two-state options. And it was supposed to be signed, and Hamas actually then attacked in order to prevent this accord to be signed and agreed upon. And with the spiraling of the Israeli, out of control of the Israeli counterattack, Saudi Arabia has now put a hold on it, and Egypt has put a hold on it, and I don't think that that's agreement or accord will ever be signed by those parties. So that's gone. So Hamas actually achieved a political objective. On the other side, they believe that if they attack this, they would provoke Israel into an overreaction, because Hamas per se is not strong enough to overcome or conquer Israel. So they need other people to help them. And they have basically now withdrawn into the city. They knew civilians will be killed. They believe, just like Marian Albright, the 500 million Iraqi children were worth it. So that lady. So Hamas is doing the same thing, sacrificing the civilian population for a political purpose. And Israel is overreacting, and whatever support they had from the rest of the world at the beginning, or the 7th or 8th of October, that has all been gone. And if they are in the West and the South, or the East and the South and Middle East are taking negative against Israel at a huge pace. It even went so far that Turkey is prepared to do some actions against Israel. Turkey, who's a NATO member, and even Pakistan has made their nukes available to anybody that should Israel use nuclear bombs, Pakistan would prepare to offer their nuclear weapons as a counteroffensive, as a deterrent. Now that is a huge, major escalation, and shows you how the West has turned, or the East has turned against Israel and the West, because they can see the hypocrisy by the West, unconditionally. So again, Hamas has succeeded. Now the question is, will the last objective of Hamas be achieved? And that is, will this conflict draw in Hezbollah and maybe Iran, or maybe, I don't think they thought about Turkey, but they thought about Hezbollah. And Hezbollah per se is significantly strong, and they can destroy Israel if they wanted to. Now the question is, will Hezbollah do that? And again, from a neutral military position, looking at the objective of Hamas and the whole situation in Israel and Palestinians, this is a golden opportunity for Hezbollah to finally make a mark on Israel, enter into the conflict, and force Israel at the end of the day to a negotiated settlement where Palestinians will finally get their two-state system. The question is whether Hezbollah will grab this opportunity or not. If it waits and tries to do it on its own in the future, there won't be a similar situation. It is now or never. Because the Arab countries are all united. And should the US type of enter on the side of Israel and start bombing Hezbollah, then I believe the whole Middle East will turn against US, and there will be numerous attacks on US bases everywhere where they are in the Middle East, and even in Europe, and even in America, because the Muslims and the Middle East, the population has been fleeing their countries or migrating or seeking refuge in the European countries. And they are planning not to assimilate with those countries, but to stay Muslims and Syrians and Lebanese and Palestinians. They are staying their specific culture. And those guys will also go onto the action front. And then there will be chaos right through Europe and America and the Middle East. So this has huge, huge implications. Well, I think the leader of Hezbollah is Nasrallah, I believe that's his name. And he's supposed to have a talk today, which is Friday, the 3rd of November. So let's see what he has. I haven't heard anything yet. But if one thinks that the Houthis in Yemen have declared war on Israel, and according to Scott Ritter, they fired about 25 missiles, of which each one of them, or most of them, reached their targets and were accurately. Although I know one missile that fell in Saudi Arabia. The Houthis, the freedom fighters in the poorest country in the Middle East, have declared war on Israel. And they have done something about it. They have fired missiles. Now, where does it leave Hezbollah or Iran? Now, I can understand Iran. Committing your country to a war is a serious decision. Nobody wants to do that. But Hezbollah is an ideological group or political group, which is something different. You don't commit the country, you commit your group against them, which is more tolerable in that respect. Now, if Hezbollah, in my opinion, again, from a neutral position, looking at the military objectives or the objectives of Hamas, is so Hezbollah doesn't join the fight. And everybody sees that the Houthis have done that. Then Hezbollah has lost face. And the question then asks yourself, who's going to support Hezbollah in the future? They might have the 40 or 50,000 missiles. They can have a big army. They have, technology. They have everything to do it. But Israel at this stage is in a very weak position, because the Arabs have all united and are supporting Palestinian and Hamas. And the New South, as they call it, has seen the hypocrisy of the West. And what is America going to do? Send soldiers there? No. Do some air raids? Sure. Do they as well have some missiles? Maybe. Will Syria maybe help them? Maybe. So, the Middle East, contrary to what everybody believes, is a powder keg and can go off any time, basically, as we speak. Not that I want it, but at the end of the day, after 70 years of conflict and suppression and severe human rights violation, not about freedom, talking about just plain simple the right to live and to earn a living, to live peacefully. Those basic human rights have been denied to Palestinians. And a lot of them have been killed. And not only in Gaza, where Hamas is supposed to be, but also on the West Bank, where 9,000 Palestinians have been killed there. And there's no Hamas there. There is no reason. But Israel decided to kill Palestinians, innocent people. So after 70 years of these things, I think it's time to change. There must be a resolution about this whole matter. This cannot go on. It has to be resolved. And they have talked and they have talked and have talked. And unfortunately, I'm a believer that you can talk as much as you want, but some or other stage, you've got to hit the guy on the nose until he bleeds. And only then will we start to listen and start to talk again. And then come to a conclusion. So, contrary to popular belief, sometimes violence is necessary. And in this case, I believe, unfortunately, it is. It has to reach a point. In any case, that's my story for today. Until next time. Cheers.